Hello, I'll be demonstrating the use of the micropulsing feature of the SOTA Silver Pulsar. Shown here is our latest model, the Model SP7. The Silver Pulsar is powered by a 9-volt alkaline style battery, shown here. Now the battery that comes with your unit may have a protective covering over the terminals. Please make sure that you peel that protective covering off in order to expose the battery terminals so they'll connect it within the unit. Now I'll show you what it looks like with the protective covering removed. As you can see, the terminals are now open. Please remember to always use an alkaline style battery and not heavy duty. Heavy duty batteries don't have the D capacity that's required to run the unit to full efficiency. You can also use rechargeable batteries, and I'll talk about those in a little bit. To insert the battery into the unit, I'll take your unit and turn it over, and on the back here we see the battery compartment lid. You simply slide that off. And if you look inside, there's two plastic rings with indicators on them. There's a lower, larger ring with a minus indicator and a smaller upper ring with a positive indicator. And that helps us to align the battery. And inside, I'll turn the unit towards the camera here, and inside you see two metal prongs. Those need to come in contact with the battery terminals. Before we put the battery in, we need to make sure those are pulled forward if they're not already, and so they make good contact with the battery. Now they're spring metal, and you simply just take your finger, grab the corner of it and just pull it forward, and just so it's at an angle that'll contact the battery properly. On the battery, of course, there's two terminals. The bottom one is the lower negative terminal, the larger one, and at the top is a smaller positive terminal. You simply line it up in this fashion, slide it in, click it into place, put your battery lid back on, turn the unit over, and I'll turn the unit on, and you should see a green on light. That tells me the unit is ready to go and the battery is working just fine. Now with rechargeables, I have here a nickel metal hydride 9-volt rechargeable battery. This has a capacity of 250 milliamp hours. And that capacity rating tells you basically how much energy is contained within the battery. And if you get a battery with a higher milliamp hour rating, the battery will simply last longer. Now, there are also different types of chemistries like the nickel cadmium. They may not last as long, but both these, of course, work quite well because you're not going through batteries like alkalines. Now, alkalines may actually have a longer life just because they hold a deeper cycle. Now, one thing about rechargeables which you need to make note of is, although they're all the same shape, the size differences come into play here, and they're because of different tolerances, and we have no control over that. And so if you're going to buy a rechargeable battery, please, if you have an opportunity, to put the battery in the unit first to make sure it fits, because it may be a little bit larger, may not fit the unit, and you don't want to be committed to buying something, let's say over the internet, if the battery doesn't fit in properly. Other than that, it works really well, and happy pulsing. The Silver Pulsar has a low battery warning indicator. It's a red light that comes on at the bottom of the unit. At the same time, there's also an audible beep. It's going to beep a few times to let you know it's time to change the battery. Okay, the next step now is to connect the micropulsing cord to the Silver Pulsar unit. Our Silver Pulsar uses a USB style cord and USB style connection. Make sure that you do not use any other type of USB computer cord to plug into the unit, and do not plug our USB cord into a computer. They're not compatible. On the end of the Silver Pulsar, there is of course the USB jack, and I'm just going to turn the unit sideways here and show you the USB cord. On one side of the USB plug, there's a USB symbol that shows the top of the plug. If I flip it over, there should be no symbol on the other side showing the back of the plug. So you connect it in this fashion, very simple. You make sure that the top of the plug is on the top area of the unit and plug it into place. Real simple. The next step now is to connect the conductive rubber electrodes into the end pins on the USB style cord here. These end pins need to be nice and clean. They need to be wiped down just to make sure there's no residue from a previous session to get the best electrical connection. And it's real simple. Conductive rubber, It's made out of a pure conductive rubber. They just simply push into place. There's a little hole on the end of the probe itself, and it just fits into the pin end. And you can sort of twist it and push it into place. Make sure that it's fully pushed in and there's no gap between the rubber and the plastic end. And I'll do the other one at the same time here. Just twist it into place. And there we are. We're good to go. Okay, the next step now is to put the cotton sleeves onto the conductive rubber probes. You always want to use cotton sleeves on the probes. And what it does, it helps disperse the electricity properly. And also it helps position the cotton sleeves on your wrist, which we'll show later. And the cotton sleeves have a cotton fuzzy on one side and Velcro on the other. And to insert into the end, there's actually 3 sewn edges, bottom, side, and top. And of course, you're going to insert the probe into the end without the sewed area. What I like to do is take the cotton sleeve and give it a little push. As you can see, it opens up. And that allows me now to insert the probe in there. So I'm going to, it's a little tricky to do here, but I sort of pre-open it up, take the rubber probe and twist it and push it into place. Push it all the way in. As you can see, it fills the area nicely. And we'll do the same on the other one. Again, we just pre-open the cotton sleeve, take the rubber probe, start it in the end and twist it into place, push it right to the end. And so now we have the conductive rubber nicely seated into the cotton sleeves. The next thing we need to do now is to moisten the cotton sleeves with water. We do that because we need to have a good electrical connection. And by moistening it, it spreads the conductivity throughout the cotton sleeve. So it's very important that you do this. I have a dropper bottle here. Let's get these guys in shape. I have a dropper bottle which I'm just had filled with water. And it's going to bead up a bit because this cotton is nice and new. So I'm just going to put some on and kind of work it into the cotton. Kind of knead it in. There we are. Just a little bit more. It's going to get a little bit messy. Don't worry about it. And you just lay it in there. And you can, again, work it in with your fingers. We'll just put on both sides here. And get that nice and moist. Now we don't want it over moist. We don't want it dripping wet. We want it nicely saturated with water. So if I take one of them here and I can squeeze off the excess water and just get it nice and moist. Because if it's dripping wet, we may cause conductivity between the cotton sleeves when we place them on our wrist, and we don't want that. So just make sure it's just nice and moist. Now I've used just tap water here. You can use distilled water, filtered water, anything that gets a good electrical connection. Now you might be sensitive to electricity and distilled water might be great, or you may be a person that needs to have greater conductivity, in which case you may just add a touch of salt to the water just to make it more conductive. But each time that we do this, again, just make sure it's nicely moistened and we're ready to move on to the next step. One of the optional features that I'd like to show you with the Silver Pulsar is the armband and clip option. This comes with your unit. And what it's meant for is to attach your unit to your arm, your bicep, or on your forearm like I'm going to demonstrate. It just allows you to be mobile with the unit. There's a shorter cord that comes with the unit, and if you want to have an optional longer cord, you can purchase that and put the unit in your pocket if you find that more convenient. Now the armband and clip has some Velcro material which determines the size of the opening. And I want to put this on first before putting the cotton sleeves on my pulse points because it's a lot easier to work. It'd be too cumbersome otherwise. Real simple. Open up the Velcro, put my arm through it. Again, I'm going to put mine on the forearm. And I just put it into a snug position. You don't want it too tight. You don't want to cut the circulation off, but just make sure it's comfortable. The next step now is to position the cotton sleeves onto the wristband. This is an interesting little demonstration how to do this. Bear with me here. The wristband, as I open it up, has the neoprene material on one side with the fuzzy section for the Velcro, and on the other side is more of just a cloth-like. I'm going to first put this on backwards to properly position the cotton sleeves. It's real simple. Put my wrist down and just connect it up. Just needs to be, again, comfortable. So now you can see that the fuzzy material is on the outside. And now I want to position the cotton sleeves, which have the Velcro. If you remember, it has the Velcro on one side. I'm going to use this and line it up with the pulse points and attach the cotton sleeves. Now we have two pulse points. One is very easy to find. That's the one near the thumb. And that's one where you would get your pulse taken by a nurse. The other side is down by the little finger. It's a little bit more difficult to find. So reposition the cotton sleeves and line it up right over that pulse point on your wrist. And you take the other one and line that up just over the little finger. So now they're pre-positioned. Now what I need to do is undo the wrist strap and turn it around so these now attach and be positioned on my skin. So I'll put this down, undo the Velcro. I'm going to, as you can see, they're held in place nicely. I put that down on the table, take my wrist, lay it over the same points, and reattach with the Velcro. And as you can see, and I may have to just reposition them, now they're perfectly placed again. As you can see, the one is right over the thumb, and the second one is over the little finger. If I turn the unit on, and I'll show you here, I can already feel the pulses. As I turn it up, there is a yellow flashing light, which will indicate that the pulsing is working. Now this may be brighter or dim depending how much conductivity is moving through your pulse points, and it'll be different for everyone. And I can feel that, even though the light may not be too bright for you, and it's going to get brighter as it sort of seats into place. Now, as we're pulsing, and it's getting quite strong now, and I'm sure the light is getting brighter because I can feel it. I'm just going to put the unit down for a second here. Over time, these may dry out because they've got water in there. And what's important is to keep them nice and moist, so you always have good conductivity. So if you're feeling it like it's getting a little bit low in intensity, real simple. You get your little water dropper of bottle here, and I just put a drop or so just inside, and right away I can feel the pulses quite a bit stronger. And the yellow light, of course, may even come on a little bit brighter. Now, it's really important that you don't over wet the cotton sleeves. We don't want to have water between these two sleeves, because what will happen is the electricity will jump across and you will not feel it. Even though the light will still be coming on brightly because you're still having electrical connection, and you'll be turning the unit up higher and higher and you won't feel it. So we want to make sure that positioning between the cotton sleeves is kept nice and dry. Some people even just get a bit of tissue paper in there and to dry it out. They may even take off the wrist strap, dry the wrist, and reapply it. So it's kind of an interplay between keeping it moist enough but not over moistened. The pulsing is quite strong right now. Now, as you're pulsing, if it suddenly stops, it could mean that the low battery warning light has come on, indicating that your battery is about to run out of juice. Now, the battery on the unit works right to the very end. It'll draw as much out as the battery as possible and turn off. So it would not be uncommon for you to suddenly stop feeling the pulses, at which time, of course, you're just simply going to look at the unit and see if your red low battery warning light has come on, and if so, just replace the battery. So this is real simple. The next step now is to connect the unit to my arm band that I did earlier, and it's real simple. You just take the unit and you slide it into place, and we're up and running. There we are. And of course, in this position, I can adjust the intensity, lower and higher. Now, with the intensity, you don't want to turn it up too high, and you don't want to turn it down too low. You want to get it on a nice, comfortable setting. I feel the pulses quite comfortably. It's a nice thumping feeling. So make sure that you don't overdo it. There's no point in having painful sensations while you're using the pulsing. It should be very comfortable because you're going to be using it for maybe several hours. So you want to make sure it's nice and comfortable. And we're good to go. Happy pulsing. Now, if you're new to pulsing, it's very important to drink a lot of water during the session. And a session working your way up to 2 hours a day would be a session. And you might want to start off with maybe 15 minutes, and maybe the next day, if you're feeling good and you can tolerate that, to move into 30 minutes and 45 and that type of thing, to eventually work up to a 2-hour session, which would be, I think, really good. And it's very important that you keep well hydrated during this time. So what I mean by that is drinking fresh, clean water, not something with water in it, but water itself. 8-ounce glass of water before you start pulsing, 8-ounce glass during pulsing, and 8-ounce when you're done. That's a really good level of hydration. And again, you're going to use common sense as you use the unit, and you're going to be able to adjust the time that you're going to put it on during that session for yourself. So maybe 15 minutes for a few days and work your way up to 2 hours a day. The other thing too is to eventually work up to 30 days. This is now what I'd like to call the minimum for me. I want to go past 30 days, maybe to 2 months. That would be really good. So working those kind of ways, which you have 2 hours a day and a minimum of 30 days would constitute a really good session for you. Some of you may have very sensitive skin and have a sensitive to the electrical pulse and may find a bit of skin irritation or just uncomfortable to use. So I'd like to talk about ways to help alleviate that for you. One of the best things that we found is conductive gel. Now, conductive gel is available in most any drugstore, and it's a nice slippery little gel and is very conductive, of course, by the name implies. And how you apply it simply is you take the cotton sleeves, pre-moisten the cotton sleeves with a bit of water, get the conductive gel, it comes in a tube, squirt a little bit on and knead it right into the cotton sleeves, and then place that onto your wrist. And I think you'll find that it's much more comfortable and it just has a more pleasant sensation for the pulsing, and it will definitely reduce the skin irritation. And of course, when you're using the unit, you don't have to turn it up to uncomfortable levels, so just make sure that the level is comfortable for people with sensitive skin. Also, with the sensitive skin, if you're using the unit on your left wrist, let's say today, we'll take everything and move it to your right wrist tomorrow. So every other day, alternate wrists. So then you kind of even it out, and that helps quite a bit too. Also, if you have any kind of irritation on your wrist, you might want to try taking the cotton sleeves off on the wristband, take them off and clean it up with soap and water just to get some of the oils off, and just maybe you can put like an aloe vera gel, you can put MSM cream or even vitamin E solution on there to help it. And again, the next day you do the other wrist. So that really helps to alleviate the uncomfortableness with people with sensitive skin. Now, some of you may have trouble feeling the pulse, and I'd like to talk about what you need to do. First thing is important is that you don't have too much water across the cotton sleeves, so the electricity is going across instead of in. Because what will happen is that the light will come on, you'll turn up the unit, but you still won't feel it because it's shorting across. So what you need to do is make sure that that area is kept dry between the cotton sleeves. The second thing is you may actually have to increase the conductivity of the water that we're using on the cotton sleeves. In other words, we want to make it more conductive. How we do that, we just take a bit of salt, put it in the water, make sure it's nicely dissolved, and use that water, which is higher conductivity, and put those into the sleeves and keep them moist with that new water. And the third thing, which is you may actually have to drink more water. You may need to increase your levels of water in your body to increase your body's conductivity so you'll feel the pulse more. So please remember to drink at least 8 ounces when you start the session, 8 ounces during the middle, and preferably 8 ounces when you're done. And that'll help give you proper hydration so you are more conductive. I'd like to show you a couple of alternatives to using the cotton sleeves with our Velcro that comes with your Silver Pulsar unit. And the first thing is simply a paper towel. And this is just your ordinary paper towel material. And you're basically going to roll your own. And in order to do that, you need to get this moistened or else it'll be too difficult to handle. So I'm just going to get a bit of water here and get a little bit moist. And once it's fully moistened, and you can see the paper towel is cut to the width and length of the probe cord to make sure it fits properly. And you're just going to place it on the probe cord like this, and you're going to start rolling it. I have fat fingers here, so it'll take a bit. Turn the end in and just keep rolling it. Keep rolling it. It's a little tricky to do. And eventually you'll get to the point where it's nicely rolled up. You're good to go. That's kind of cool too. It'll actually hold that shape as it dries out a bit, and as you can remove it from the probe cord here, and you can see it holds its shape very well. So that works quite nicely. The second option here is to use a diaper material. This is like a cotton that you would get in a diaper material, which is very absorbent for water. That's why we chose the diaper material. Again, it's cut into a square, the same width and length as the probe cord. This one, of course, you'll have to also moisten. I've pre-moistened this so it's easier to handle. You're going to do the same kind of thing. You're going to set it up like this, and you're going to roll it just like you did with the other one. Take the end and move it in a bit and roll it. And like I say, it's tough for me because I got large fingers here. Now this is not going to hold the shape like the paper towel because it is a cloth material. So now you need to get a bit of the thread. I've just got a bit of cotton thread here, and basically pinch it and start spiraling it down the length, and you work your way back and you make a nice pattern with it. Now you can take the thread and tie it into a knot. It's too difficult for me to do that on this, so I'll just show you, and you can tie the knot on yours if you like. And there it is, and it holds the shape nicely. You can slide it out, and when it dries out you can slide it back in, so it works quite well. And we also have an option of a cotton sleeve that does not have the Velcro on the back. Some of you may find that this is more convenient to use for whatever reason. And with this particular one, as you can see, it's just like the ones with Velcro. It's sewn on 3 sides, which leaves one side open. And what you want to do is just pop that open by pushing it. And it's got double layers, so you want to make sure that you get 2 layers on the top, 2 layers on the bottom, so it's equally positioned between the probes. And then you just take the probe, position into that little hollow that you've created here, and work its way in. There it is. And again, just sort of spiral it into place. Make sure it's pushed all the way in, right to the end. And it's all done there. Now to use this, of course, we need to get that moistened and wet. So I'm going to take my dropper bottle, and it's going to bead up like this. So we're going to take it and just sort of work itself in, work the water in. It's very common. So you just get it and you work it in, that type of thing. We'll get our second one going here. Again, we'll open it up a bit and we'll slide it into place. Let's just do that like this. Right to the end. Make sure it's nice and snug. Get some more water. And again, it's going to bead up a bit, so you want to squirt the water in and really work it into the cotton to get it nice and moist. And again, you don't want to over moisten it, but you want to have it nicely saturated like these. And now we're ready to take these and connect them to our wrist. Okay, I've got the sleeves moistened with water, and the next step now is to connect them to the wrist strap. So we take our wrist strap. Again, it's the exact same wrist strap as with the Velcro cotton sleeves, the same wrist strap. And on one side we have the softer Velcro material with the neoprene, and on the other side is a cloth-like material. In this case, in order to connect it properly to the wrist, we're going to put the Velcro material or the neoprene against the wrist, and I'll just put my wrist down like this, connect it up, and it just takes a bit of doing here, and there it is, nice and comfortable. And now I need to take the cotton sleeves, and again we're just using the cotton sleeves rather than the other ones, And I need to manually place and push these up into position. And I'll first put them underneath here, and I'll reposition them later because it's a lot easier to first get them in this position first. Now, of course, the one cotton sleeve will line up with the pulse point for your thumb, and the other one, of course, will line up with the pulse point for your little finger. And there should be a good space between it, so make sure it's connected in that way. And you're basically ready to connect that to the silver pulsar unit and start pulsing. This needs to be moistened, of course. We already have a bit of water on here, but as the cotton sleeves dry out over time, you need to re-moisten, and it's real simple. You just get a drop, just put a drop of water there, drop of water there. It'll bead up a little bit there, don't worry about it. And just make sure that you don't excessively moisten it where the water gets across and the electricity may short out, because it'll keep turning the unit up and you won't feel it even though the light will come on, because the electricity isn't going in, it's going across. And so just make sure you keep that dry in between the two cotton sleeves. Sometimes you could even take the wristband off, dry the wrist and reapply it. And that's basically it, and we're good to go. Now, if during your session you stop feeling the pulse, it might be a good idea to test the unit. It's very simple. The first thing you want to do is plug the USB connector into the unit, and on the probe ends here, what we're going to do is touch the two probe ends together. I'm going to turn the unit on and turn it up fully. And what you should see is the yellow light flashing brightly. If I turn it down, of course, the intensity will go down. If I turn it up, the intensity will go up. The next thing now, I can leave it in the turned up position for this next step here. The next thing is to connect the rubber probe, the conductive rubber probes, to the pins. First thing you want to do is make sure the pins are nice and clean of any residue that you may have had during your session. So just clean them with a paper towel. Take the conductive rubber probe ends and insert them into the pins, push them in all the way, and do for both. Then take the tips of the conductive rubber, hold them together, and look at your unit, and you should see the yellow light flashing brightly. And make sure it's on full intensity to see the light flashing brightly, and I can turn it down and turn it back up, and the intensity is full. Now, of course, during this time, you want to make sure that your red low battery warning light is not on, or else this test may not pass. So when I see the unit in this condition here, it's working perfectly. That means there's good conductivity through the conductive rubber probes, through the pins, through the USB, and the unit itself is outputting perfectly. So this unit is working great. What happens if you don't see that yellow light flashing? It could mean that there's either the rubber probes need to be replaced because they may have worn out, or your cord may be faulty and you may need to get a new cord, or both. So make sure again that the red battery warning light is not on. If your light is flashing brightly, your unit is working perfectly.